A little Te Deum of the Commonplace. A fragment by William Arthur Dunkerley, John Oxenham. With hearts responsive and enfranchised eyes, we thank Thee, Lord, for all things beautiful, and good, and true. For things that seem not good yet turn to good, for all the sweet compulsions of Thy will that chased, and tried, and wrought us to Thy shape, for things unnumbered that we take of right, and value first when first they are withheld. For light and air, sweet sense of sound and smell. For ears to hear the heavenly harmonies. For eyes to see the unseen in the seen. For vision of the worker in the work. For hearts to apprehend Thee everywhere, we thank Thee, Lord. For all the wonders of this wondrous world, the pure pearl splendours of the coming day, the breaking east, the rosy flush, the dawn, for that bright gem in morning's coronal, that one lone star that gleams above the glow, for that high glory of the impartial sun, the golden noonings big with promised life, the matchless pageant of the evening skies. The wide-flung gates, the gleams of paradise, supremest visions of Thine artistry, the sweet, soft gloaming and the friendly stars, the vesper stillness and the creeping shades, the moon's pale majesty, the pulsing dome, wherein we feel Thy great heart throbbing near, for sweet laborious days and restful nights, for work to do and strength to do the work, we thank Thee, Lord, for those first tiny, prayerful folded hands that pierce the winter's crust, and softly bring life out of death, the endless mystery, for all the first sweet flushings of the spring, the greening earth, the tender heavenly blue, the rich brown furrows gaping for the seed, for all Thy grace in bursting bud and leaf, the bridal sweetness of the orchard trees, rose tender in their coming fruitfulness, the fragrant snowdrifts flung upon the breeze, the grace and glory of the fruitless flowers, ambrosial beauty their reward and ours, for hedgerows sweet with hawthorn and wildrose, for meadows spread with gold and gemmed with stars, for every tint of every tiniest flower, for every daisy smiling to the sun, for every bird that builds in joyous hope, for every lamb that frisks beside its dam, for every leaf that rustles in the wind, for spurring poplar, and for spreading oak, for queenly birch and lofty swaying elm, for the great cedar's benedictory grace, for earth's 10,000 fragrant incenses, sweet altar gifts from leaf and fruit and flower, for every wondrous thing that greens and grows, for wide-spread cornlands, billowing golden seas, for rippling stream and white-lace waterfall, for purpling mountains, lakes like silver shields, for white-piled clouds that float against the blue, for tender green of far-off upland slopes, for fringing forests and far-gleaming spires, for those white peaks, serene and grand and still, for that deep sea, a shallow to Thy love, for round green hills, earth's full benignant breasts, for sun-chased shadows flitting o'er the plain, for gleam and gloom, for all life's counter-change, for hope that quickens under darkening skies, for all we see, for all that underlies, we thank Thee, Lord. For that sweet impulse of the coming spring, for ripening summer and the harvesting, for all the rich autumnal glories spread, the flaming pageant of the ripening woods, the fiery gorse, the heather-purpled hills, the rustling leaves that fly before the wind, and lie below the hedgerows whispering, for meadows silver white with hoary dew, for sheer delight of tasting once again that first crisp breath of winter in the air, the pictured pain, the new white world without, the sparkling hedgerows' witchery of lace, the soft white flakes that fold the sleeping earth, the cold without, the cheerier warmth within, for red heart roses in the winter snows, for all the flower and fruit of Christmastide, for all the glowing heart of Christmastide, we thank Thee, Lord. For all Thy ministries, for morning mist and gently falling dew, for summer rains, for winter ice and snow, for whispering wind and purifying storm, for the reft clouds that show the tender blue, for the forked flash and long tumultuous roll, for mighty rains that wash the dim earth clean, for the sweet promise of the sevenfold bow, for the soft sunshine and the still calm night, for dimpled laughter of soft summer seas, for latticed splendor of the sea-born moon, for gleaming sands and granite-fronted cliffs, for flying spume and waves that whip the skies, for rushing gale and for the great glad calm, for might so mighty and for love so true, with equal mind, we thank Thee, Lord. For maiden sweetness and for strength of men, for love's pure madness in its high estate, for parentage, man's nearest reach to Thee, for kinship, sonship, friendship, brotherhood of men, one Father, one great family, for glimpses of the greater in the less, for touch of Thee in wife and child and friend, for noble self-denying motherhood, for saintly maiden lives of rare perfume, for little pattering feet and crooning songs, for children's laughter and sweet wells of truth, for sweet child faces and the sweet wise tongues, for childhood's faith that lifts us near to Thee and bows us with our own disparity, for childhood's sweet unconscious beauty sleep, for all that childhood teaches us of Thee, we thank Thee, Lord. For doubts that led us to the larger trust, for ills to conquer, for the love that fights, for that strong faith that vanquished axe and flame and gave us freedom for our heritage, for clouds and darkness and the still, small voice, for sorrows bearing fruit of nobler life, for those sore strokes that broke us at thy feet, for peace in strife, for gain in seeming loss, for every loss that wrought the greater gain, for that sweet juice from bitterness outpressed, for all this sweet, strange paradox of life, we thank thee, Lord. For friends above, for friends still left below, for the rare links invisible between, for thine unsearchable greatness, for the veils between us and the things we may not know, for those high times when hearts take wing and rise and float secure above earth's mysteries, for that wide, open avenue of prayer, all radiant with thy glorious promises, for sweet hearts tuned to noblest charity, for great hearts toiling in the outer dark, for friendly hands stretched out in time of need, for every gracious thought and word and deed, we thank thee, Lord. For songbird answering song on topmost bough, for myriad twitterings of the simpler folk, for that sweet lark that carols up the sky, for that low fluting on the summer night, for distant bells that tremble on the wind, for great round organ tones that rise and fall, entwined with earthly voices tuned to heaven, and bear our hearts above the high arched roof, for thy great voice that dominates the whole, and shakes the heavens, and silences the earth, for hearts alive to earth's sweet minstrelsies, for souls attuned to heavenly harmonies, for apprehension, and for ears to hear, we thank thee, Lord. For that supremest token of thy love, thyself made manifest in human flesh, for that pure life beneath the Syrian sky, the humble toil, the sweat, the bench, the saw, the nails well driven, and the work well done, for all its vast expansions, for the stress of those 3 mighty years, for all he bore of our humanity, his hunger, thirst, his homelessness and want, his weariness that longed for well-earned rest, for labor's high ennoblement through him, who labored with his hands for daily bread, for Lazarus, Mary, Martha, Magdalene, for Nazareth and Bethany, not least for that dark hour in lone Gethsemane, for that high cross upraised on Calvary, the broken seals, the rolled back stone, the way, forever open through his life in death, for that brief glimpse vouchsafed within the veil, for all his gracious life, and for his death, with low bowed heads and hearts impassionate, we thank thee, Lord. For all life's beauties and their beauteous growth, for nature's laws and thy rich providence, for all thy perfect processes of life, for the minute perfection of thy work, seen and unseen, in each remotest part, for faith, and works, and gentle charity, for all that makes for quiet in the world, for all that lifts man from his common rut, for all that knits the silken bond of peace, for all that lifts the fringes of the night, and lights the darkened corners of the earth, for every broken gate and sundered bar, for every wide-flung window of the soul, for that thou bearest all that thou hast made, we thank thee, Lord. For perfect childlike confidence in thee, for childlike glimpses of the life to be, for trust akin to my child's trust in me, for hearts at rest through confidence in thee, for hearts triumphant in perpetual hope, for hope victorious through past hopes fulfilled, for mightier hopes born of the things we know, for faith born of the things we may not know, for hope of powers increased 10,000-fold, for that last hope of likeness to thyself, when hope shall end in glorious certainty, with quickened hearts that find thee everywhere, we thank thee, Lord.